Chapter 92 of Jin Ping Mei Chongzhen version of the embroidered portrait. Chen Jingji was trapped in Yanzhou Prefecture, and Wu Yunyang made a fuss in the official office. The poem says, "The fierce tiger is so powerful that it is often tied up in a hurry. The thunder roars violently, and the branches are already at the feet. Suddenly, when I looked at P's sleeping place, there was no bright light anymore. If a person is more than this, he will try his best to persuade evil spirits." It is said that Li Yan'e beat up the hosta, and immediately asked Tao's mother to come and take it out. He sold it for 8 taels of silver and bought another maid of 18 years old, who called Mantanger to serve on the stove. But he told Chen Jingji that since Sister Ximen came home, she had returned a lot of bedclothes and dowry items. The guys in the box and cage started shouting every 3 days, and made trouble every 5 days, asking his mother, Mrs. Zhang, for money to do business. His maternal uncle, Zhang Tuanlian, came to ask his mother to borrow 50 taels of silver to resume management. He got drunk and yelled at Uncle Zhang's door. His uncle Zhang was so angry that he borrowed money from another place, worked as a steward, and returned the money. His mother, Mrs. Zhang, suffered from a severe illness and was bedridden day after day. She took medicine and sought medical treatment all day long. He couldn't beat him, so he had to exchange 300 taels of silver with him, and asked Chending to open 2 rooms at the front door of his house to open a cloth shop and do business. Jingji made friends with Lu Sanlang and Daling day by day, playing pipa, playing dominoes, playing shuanglu in the shop, and drinking half the night to see if he could get rid of his capital. Chending told Mr. Zhang how much he spent on drinking every day. Mrs. Zhang listened to Chending's words and refused to trust him. Jingji replied that Chending was dyeing cloth, and took away the money and kicked Chending and his wife out to live outside, but he took young Daling as his clerk. This young Daling's name is Young Guangyan and his nickname is Iron Nail. He is dedicated to telling lies and making false claims. When he makes promises to others, he is like catching a shadow in the wind, defrauding people of their money, and like picking things out of a bag. Jingji asked his mother to give him another 200 taels of silver to add to his supply. She collected a total of 500 taels of silver and trusted him to go to Linqing to sell cloth. Young Daling went home to pack his luggage and followed Jingji from home to go to Linqing to look for the missing goods in Matu. Arriving at Linqing, Linqing Gate is a lively and prosperous place called Matu, where merchants come and go, and vehicles gather. There are 32 flower alleys and 72 orchestra buildings. Jingji was a young man after all, and was led by young Daling to visit prostitutes and hotels, but he did not sell much goods. When I was walking in a brothel, I met a fan named Feng Jinbao. He was a romantic and pretty girl, with both sex and art. When asked how young he was, the madam said, "My sister is my biological daughter, and he is the only one who earns the money to support me. This year, I'm only 2,918 years old." When Jingji saw it, he was stunned, and he married the madam for 5 years. To silver coins and house gold, I slept with him for several nights in a row. When young Daling saw that he loved this fan, he lingered on her and talked about her, saying that he wanted to marry him. The bastard asked for 120 taels of silver. When the price reached 100 taels, he exchanged the silver and married her into the family. They were carried in sedan chairs along the way. Both young Daling and Jingji rode horses, escorting the goods cart, whipping their horses and whipping all the way. They were so happy. Exactly, passionate Swallow Tower. Ma Dao Kong looks back. He was sent to Wellington to accompany him as a friend of Luan Huang. When Mrs. Zhang saw that Jingji's goods were not enough, she spent all her money to marry a singer. She breathed heavily and died sadly. This Jingji inevitably bought a coffin to bury, chanted sutras for 7 days, left it for 7 days, sent it out, and buried it together with the tombs of the ancestors. His mother-in-law, Zhang Tuanlian, looked at his mother, but she didn't have the same level of experience as him. When Jingji returned from overturning the tomb, his mother had 3 main rooms, with the spiritual place in the middle being kept. Fang Jinbao lived in the other 2 rooms, and the eldest sister lived in the side room. He also bought a girl named Chongzhen to serve Fang Jinbao. Young Daling opened a shop in front of the door, and the family bought and sang a lot of wine and meat. I only sleep with the singer every day, leaving my eldest sister alone. One day, I found out that Meng Yulu was married to Li Yan'e, the son of Lizi County, and brought many things with him. After 3 years in office, Li Zixian was promoted to the general magistrate in Yanzhou Prefecture, Zhejiang Province. He got up and took the waterway to go to his post. Chen Jingji remembered that he had picked up Meng Yulu's hairpin in the garden, so he wanted to use the hairpin as a certificate and go to Yanzhou. It is only said that Yulu had an affair with him first, and she had a hairpin with him, but she did not get along with him and brought many things with her. When she married Li Yan'e, there were all the gold and silver boxes and cages that young Jian kept in the past, and they should have been removed from the official position. Then Li Tong as a civil servant. What a waste of water. Hearing such powerful words, he is not afraid not to ask his son to give his wife to me with both hands. I then married the future family and became a couple with Feng Jinbao, and it turned out to be very useful. It is, plan to catch the moon rabbit in the middle of the month, and plan to catch the golden crow in the day. It's better if Jingji doesn't come, but when he comes, it's exactly like this. People who have lost their sight meet the 5 realms, and hungry ghosts hit Zhongqi in the cold sky. There is poetry to prove it. When I rushed to Yanzhou to visit the beautiful lady, my heart felt as if a stone had sunk. Once whose man was as deep as the sea, Xiao Lang fell into a trap. One day, Chen Jingji checked his mother's box and found 1,000 taels of gold and silver. He left 100 taels to go to Feng Jinbao's house. He called Chen Dingfu in to look after the house and sell scraps of cloth in the shop in front of the door. He and young Daling took their family member Chen in with them and took 900 taels of silver. They got up from the Mid-Autumn Festival in August and went to Huzhou to sell half a boat of silk and silk. Shop owner Chenner is inside. Chenner killed the chicken to get wine and drank with young Daling. In the middle of drinking, he said to young Daling, "Brother, you will keep an eye on the cargo on the ship for the time being and stay in Erlang's shop for a few days. Chenin and I will take some personnel gifts and go to Yanzhou Mansion in Zhejiang Province to see if my sister is married in the mansion. How about that? You'll be here in 5 days," young Daling said. "I'll just go ahead and wait in the store." Chen Jingji Qianbu Wanbu and Chenin took some money and personnel gifts with them and took the route to Yanzhou Mansion one day. He entered the city and settled in the temple. I found out that 1 month after Li Tong was appointed, his small boat only arrived 3 days ago. Chen Jingji did not dare to neglect, so he bought for plates of gifts and for pieces of silk ruler heads, which Chenin kept in check. He then chose to wear neat clothes and hats, with bright eyebrows, and walked to the front of the government office, bowed to the doorman and said, "I'm sorry to report that I am the relative of the newly married wife of Tong Chuan's father's office, and Uncle Meng is here to visit." After hearing this, the official did not dare to neglect, and immediately reported it in. The yeoman was reading in the study room when he heard that it was a woman's brother. He ordered his left and right men to carry the gifts in first, and while busy arranging his clothes, he said, "Invitation." He invited Chen Jingji into the yeoman hall to conduct a ceremony, seated the guests and hosts separately, and said, "When we got married the day before yesterday, why didn't I meet my second uncle?" Jingji said, "I'm selling goods in Sichuan and Guangzhou and won't come back until a year ago. I don't know if my sister is getting married to my family and I'm not close to you. I'm going to give you a small gift today. Come and see my sister." Li Yan'e said, "I have always been ignorant. I am sorry. I apologize." After a while, the tea was finished, and the Yan'e ordered the people around him, "Take the gift stickers and gifts and tell your mother, second uncle." Here, Meng Yulu was sitting in the room when he heard Xiao Menzi come in and announce, "Second uncle Meng is here." Yulu said, "And that uncle? Could it be that my second brother Meng Rui is here?" Qianshan. Wan Shui came to see me. When he saw Bandang bring in a gift and a sticker with the words "Dependent Meng Rui" on it, he knew it was his brother and said, "Please," and asked Len Xiang to clean up the back hall. The Jade building is decorated, waiting to be seen. I saw Rangzi coming from the yeoman, and Yulu was watching from behind the curtain, but suddenly it was Brother Chen who made the mistake. Not his brother. What's he doing here? What shall I say to him when I go out? As the saying goes, whether you're close or not depends on your hometown. Whether you're beautiful or not depends on your hometown. Even though he's not my brother, He's still my son-in-law. He put on makeup and went out to meet him. Na Jingji said, I never knew my sister was getting married here. I never saw it. He just said this because he didn't expect the disciples to come to invite guests to the Yamen, but there were guests coming from outside. The Yamen assigned Yulu to entertain his second uncle, and then went out to entertain the guests. When Yulu saw Jingji kowtow, he quickly returned the courtesy and said, Brother-in-law, you are excused from the ceremony. Did the wind blow you here? After reciting the etiquette, he sat down and asked Langshang to watch the tea come out. After tea, we chatted with each other about common things. Yuluin asked, How are you? Eldest sister. Jingji told Yulu about how he came out of Ximen Sing's house and asked for a cage. Yulu also told him about visiting the grave during the Qingming festival, meeting Chunmite Yangfu Temple, and burning paper on the Jinlian grave. He added, When I was at home, I often advised your aunt to love her son-in-law as much as she loves her daughter. My brother-in-law never supported outsiders. He listened to the villain and sent his brother-in-law away. I didn't know if my brother-in-law fell behind and begged for a box. Jingji said, To tell you the truth, I have a relationship with sixth sister. Who knows? He listened to the slave's words and sent him out before eating Wusong. If he was at home, then Wusong had 7. How dare you come to your house to kill him? My hatred is as deep as the sea. Even if the sixth sister dies in the underworld, I won't let him go. Yulu said, Brother-in-law, just let it go. Since ancient times, enmities can only be resolved, not ended. While they were talking, the maid put down the table, placed the wine, and filled the table with cups and plates of food. Yulu poured a glass of wine, handed it to Jingji with both hands, and said, Brother-in-law has traveled a long way and has nothing to spend. Please give me a glass of water and wine. Jingji took it with his hand, sang, and poured a glass in return for the wife. Zuli sat down because he saw the woman calling him brother-in-law, elder brother-in-law, younger brother-in-law. He said nothing and secretly thought in his heart, How come this slut doesn't admit the crime and only calls me brother-in-law? Wait for me to explore him slowly. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 courses of food, no one was round. So he threw in a few evil words and said, My brother misses his sister as much as he feels thirsty for milk. And like when she was hot and cold, why are we playing chess and playing cards in the same place, sitting together like a back cover? Who expects us to be separated today? Yulu said with a smile, Since ancient times, things have been clear and muddy. You will see in time. Jingji smiled and took out a pack of 2-person fragrant tea from his sleeve, handed it to the woman, and said, Sister, if you are affectionate, please take pity on your brother and eat this fragrant tea from me. He immediately knelt down. The woman suddenly blushed from her ears, turned red in the face, grabbed the tea bag on the ground with one hand, and said, You don't know how to respect others. I was kind enough to give you wine to eat, but you started teasing me. After the banquet, he went to the room. Seeing that he ignored him, Jingji picked up the fragrant tea and said, I came to see you with good intentions, but you have changed your mind. How dare you say that you married Tongpan's son, a good man, and you don't want me anymore. When you were the 3rd little wife in Ximen King's house, you were never the same as me. He took out the old gold-hatted silver hairpin from his sleeve and said, Whose is this? You are cheating on me. Why did this hairpin fall into my hands? The name of Yulu was engraved on it. You and the eldest wife conspired to send 8 boxes of gold, silver, jade and precious stones to my house. They were all from Yang Jian. I'll tell you not to panic, and I'll talk to you at Baziba Jinjia. When Yulu saw him speaking, the hairpin he held was the gold-hatted lotus petal hairpin he wore on his head. I disappeared in the garden in the past. How did it fall into the hands of this short-lived person? I'm afraid the servants who yelled knew it, and it changed in a moment. With a smile on his face, he came out, took Jingji's hand, and said, I'm so good at blocking you, I'll make you fool around with me, and I'll get annoyed. Seeing that there was no one around, he whispered, You have a heart, and I also have a heart. The two couldn't help but kiss each other while hugging each other. Jingji stretched out his tongue like a snake spitting out a message, then let it slip into his mouth, and let him smack it, saying, Only when you call me to kiss your husband can you be considered as someone who has my heart. The woman said, Stop talking. Just I'm afraid someone might hear me. Jingji quietly said to him, I've managed half of the cargo and I'm waiting at Qingjiangpu. If you're willing to pay attention, come out privately in the evening and follow me. Why don't we go to the boatman and marry him? He is a civil servant, so he is afraid of trouble. Why don't he come to catch you? The woman said, That's it. After the date, you wait behind the wall of the house tonight. Here, I have a bag of gold and silver. I'll tie it to the wall and pick it up with you. Then I'll pretend to be a doorman and come out through the door to get on the boat with you. The judge heard that it was the beautiful lady who was interested. I am afraid that the pink wall is thousands of feet high. The pink wall is ruthless, but we are still separated by thousands of mountains. At that time, if Meng Yulu could marry a stupid person, it would be better for him to marry Jingji, and Jingji would be the one to marry him. Now that he is marrying Li Yan'e, he has a bright future, is a charming person, is young, and is full of kindness. And he seduces you again. What to do? Don't say that you don't even have hands on weekdays. This husband was also unlucky, so he told the truth and secrets to him, and took advantage of his mother-in-law to make money. Exactly, there are still thorns hidden under the flowers, branches and leaves, and it is difficult to protect people's hearts from being poisonous. After the two of them started talking, Jingji had a few glasses of wine, said goodbye and went back. Li Yan'e hurriedly sent him out of the house, followed by Chen An. The yeoman then asked the woman, Where does your brother live? I will go back to pay homage to him tomorrow and send him some information. The woman then said, That's my brother over there. He is the son-in-law of Ximon King's family. So he's here to hook me up. I've arranged to meet him at the back wall tonight at 3 o'clock. How about we take advantage of him and treat him as a thief to get rid of the trouble? He is not a poisonous husband. If I don't go looking for him, he will die on his own. As he walked out, he called his companions, his confidants, and prepared to go. Chen Jingji didn't know what was going on. At midnight, he led his family, Chen An, to the back wall of the government office. He coughed as a signal. Hearing only the sound of the jade tower inside the wall, he hid a rope on the wall and tied a large bag there. Silver. It turned out that it was the 200 taels of stolen silver that Kunai took as fine. Jingji was just waiting to be taught by Chen An, who was taking it away. Suddenly he heard a bang and 4 or 5 men flashed out of the black shadow, shouting, There is a thief. Jingji and Chen An were immediately tied up, and they were notified. Li Tong was sentenced to pay. We will all be escorted to the prison for questioning tomorrow. It turns out that the magistrate of the main hall of Yanzhou Prefecture was surnamed Su, and his given name was Su Kuang. He was from Lintao Prefecture, Shaanxi Province. He was a Gangsu Jinshi and was an extremely honest and upright man. The next morning, when the hall was raised, there were 2 rows of officials on the left and right. Li Tong, the judge, went up and drew the throne. The treasurer reported the case of the thief and brought Chen Jingji up. He said, Last night at the first watch, there were 2 unknown thieves who are now known. Chen Jingji and Chen An opened the key to the warehouse door and stole 200 taels of stolen silver. They jumped over the wall and were caught. Come to see the master. Magistrate Su ordered, Bring Chen Jingji and Chen An together. Kexu rushed to the hall and knelt down. When the prefect saw that Jingji was young and handsome, he asked, Where is this guy from? Why did he come to my government office to work as a thief at night and steal stolen money from the government treasury? What's the point? Then Chen Jingji only kotos and expresses injustice. Magistrate Su asked, How can you plead guilty for being a thief? Li Tongpuan stood aside and said, Old sir, you don't have to ask him. Seeing that the stolen goods are proven, why don't you return to punishment? Magistrate Su immediately ordered the people around him, Take it down and beat him 20 times, ban. Li Tong said, People are bitter insects. Otherwise, the thief will turn around. At that time, the officials on both sides dragged Jingji and Chen An down. Chen Jingji only cursed. Who knew the adulteress Meng Sanner had trapped me here? What injustice! What a misfortune! After all, Zhu Zhifu was an official from Huangtang. Hearing this, there must be a reason. So he was beaten to the 10th board. Ordered, Stay here, take him to prison, and ask again tomorrow. Li Tongpian said, Old gentleman, you shouldn't offend him. As the saying goes, people's hearts are like iron, and official laws are like furnaces. If you let him go for a night, he will be fine. Translate the words. Magistrate Zhu said, "It doesn't matter. I have my own idea." Then the jailer escorted Jingji and Chen into prison. Magistrate Zhu had some doubts in his heart, so he called his confidants to come closer. In this way, he went to prison to inquire about the origins of Jingji's crimes, and even rewarded him. The officer pretended to be a prisoner and slept on the same wooden box with Jingji at night. He asked him why. "I think my brother is young and not a thief. He is here today and has failed in the lawsuit." Jingji said, "It's hard to explain in one sentence. I am the son-in-law of Ximon King in King County. The newly married woman of Li Tongpuan's son, Meng, is my father-in-law's younger brother. She has had an affair with me in the past. Now I have brought my master Yang Jian to store 10 boxes of gold and silver treasures to play with. I came here to ask him for something, but he bullied me like this and treated me like a thief. It's so hard to beat me up and not see the light of day." This man listened, came out of the hall and reported to Magistrate Zhu. The magistrate said, "How? I said there must be a reason why this person was called Meng unjustly." The next day, the court was open, and officials stood on both sides. Prefect Zhu brought Chen Jingji and Chenin up, took their statements, and took a confession of innocence, and ordered them to be released. Li Tongpan, who was unaware of this, kept saying, "Old sir, this guy is a thief, so we can't let him go." Prefect Zhu scolded Li Tongpan to the assistant officials, saying, "I'm a regular official in this prefecture, and I work for the court. I shouldn't take revenge on you and frame a commoner as a thief. Your son married his father-in-law Ximon King's concubine Meng, and brought a lot of things. This should be stolen goods and boxes of gold and silver. He is Ximon King's son-in-law, and he came to ask for the stolen goods. How can you fabricate a thief's relationship with him and convict him, and ask me to work for your family? As an official, you have to raise your sons and daughters, and they have to grow up. If this is the case, how can justice be done?" Li Tongpan was scolded in the hall, and he was ashamed and dejected, and dared not say a word. Chen Jingji and Chenin were released. After a long time, Prefect Zhu left the court. Li Tongpan returned to his house, feeling very anxious. He yelled to his wife, "I have raised such an unfilial son. Today, Prefect Zhu scolded me in front of all the colleagues and officials. I am so angry." His wife panicked and asked, "What's the matter?" Li Tongpan called his son to him and ordered his attendants. "Bring the big board. I am so angry," he said. "You caught him like a thief. He is Ximon King's son-in-law, because this woman brought a lot of dowries and boxes of gold and silver. He claimed that they were things that should be confiscated by the government and were deposited by the rebel Yang Jian. He came to ask you for them. He said that you stole the official silver from the treasury and arrested him as a thief. I didn't know a word, but Prefect Zhu scolded me in front of everyone. This is my first day as an official, and you took care of me. What's the use of you? An unfilial son?" He ordered his attendants to beat him with big boards like raindrops. Poor Li Yan'e was beaten so hard that his skin was torn and blood was gushing out. His wife saw that he was beaten to a pulp and cried to persuade him. Meng Yulu stood at the corner door of the back hall, hiding her tears and listening. He was beaten with 30 sticks. Li Tongpan ordered his attendants, "Take Yan'e and send the woman away immediately. Let him remarry as he pleases, so as to avoid trouble and preserve my reputation." Li Yan'e was unwilling to divorce, so he just cried and begged in front of his parents. "I would rather have my son beaten to death in front of my father than to leave my woman." Li Tongpan locked Yan'e in the back hall with iron chains and refused to let him out, but wanted to imprison him until he died. The lady cried, "My husband, you have been an official for more than 50 years, but you have only this little blood left. If you don't fight for this woman, you will imprison him to death. Who will you rely on when you retire in the future?" Li Tongpan said, "Otherwise, if he stays here, I will be troubled by others." The lady said, "You can't let him stay here. Just send him and his wife back to their hometown in Zhending Prefecture." Tongpan followed the lady's advice, released the yeoman, and ordered him to leave within 3 days. He packed up the car and went back to Zhaoqiang County with the lady to study. However, Chen Jingji and Chenin left Yanzhou Prefecture, picked up their luggage at the temple, and went directly to Chener's Inn in Xinjiangpu to look for young Daling. Chenner said. He said 3 days ago that you had a letter saying that he could not come, so he packed up the cargo ship and went home. Jingji didn't believe it and went down the river to look for a boat, but found nothing. He said, "Damn it, why did you leave without waiting for me?" Kwang had just been released from prison and had no money left. He and Chenin had to board a boat, pawn their clothes, beg for food and return home. They were as busy as dogs that had lost their homes and as anxious as fish that had escaped the net. They searched for young Dowling, but there was no trace of him. It was late autumn, the trees were withering, and the golden wind was blowing. It was very desolate. There is an 8-line poem that simply says that autumn is the most miserable for travelers. The lotus leaves are withered, and the leaves of the sycamores are falling. Cicadas are chirping in the rotten grass, and wild geese are landing on the flat sand. The drizzle wets the green forest, and the frost is heavy and cold. Without seeing pedestrians on the road, how can we know the taste of autumn? One day Jingji came home. Chending was standing at the door and saw Jingji coming home. He was ragged and had a dark face, and he was startled. He took him home and asked where the cargo ship had arrived. Jingji was so angry that he didn't speak for half a day. He told the story of the lawsuit in Yanzhou Prefecture. Thanks to the prefect Zhu Zhifu who released me. Otherwise my life would be in danger. Now young Dowling, that bastard, has stolen my goods and I don't know where they are. He first sent Chending to his family to inquire, but his family said that he hadn't come home yet. Jingji went to ask again in person, but there was no trace of him. He was panicked and went into the room. Feng Jinbao and Ximen Daji were fighting each other since Jingji left. The two have been at odds with each other until now. The eldest sister then said, Feng Jinbao took the money, gave it to his brothel owner. His servant bearer comes here every day, hides things behind our backs, buys wine and meat, and eats in the house. There is nothing we need at home, so she sleeps until noon and doesn't buy anything. She just waits for us. Feng Jinbao said again. The eldest sister does not touch any grass all day long. She steals rice to exchange for sesame cakes. She also steals the cooked and pickled meat in the room and eats it with the maid Yuang Shuer. Chen Jingji believed it and scolded the eldest sister. You are not a talented thief. You are a greedy and cunning woman. You steal rice to exchange for sesame cakes, and team up with the maid to steal meat. He beat Yuang Shuer and kicked the eldest sister a few times. The elder sister was anxious, and she hit Feng Jinbao on the head, cursing. You whore who keeps a man. The things you stole are not worth anything to the brothel owner. But you are telling the man that I stole rice and meat, and the night watchman caught the night watchman and let the man kick me. I will exchange with you. A whore, what do you want to do with my life? Jingji said. You whore, you exchange with him, but you are not worth a few of his toes. It was also necessary to have something to do, so he grabbed the elder sister's hair, hit her with his fists, kicked her, and beat her with a crutch, causing her to bleed from her nose and mouth. She woke up half a day later. Jingji went back to the singing room and slept. He let the elder sister sob in the room below, and she just cried. Yuang Shao fell asleep in the outer room. Poor elder sister hung herself with a rope in the middle of the night and died at the age of 24. The next morning, Yuang Shao got up and pushed the inner room, but it didn't open. In the upper room, Jingji and Feng Jinbao were still in bed, so they asked their maid Chongzhen to call the eldest sister to get a wooden basin to wash her feet, but she couldn't push it open. Jingji still cursed. Thief whore, why are you still sleeping? It's too late. I'll stomp the door and go in, and pluck all the hair off the whore's temples. Chongzhen looked inside through the window and said, she's up, and she's playing on the swing in the room. She also said, she's playing with puppets. Yuang Shao looked for a long time and shouted, Dad, it's bad. My mother is hanging on the top of the bed. The young man panicked, and he got up with the others, stomped the door open, went forward to take her down, and tried to save her for a long time, but she didn't breathe. I don't know how long it took. She died. It's just like this. I don't know where my true nature is. I suspect it's in the flowing clouds and autumn water. Chending heard that his eldest sister had died, and was afraid that it would be implicated. So he went to inform Yu Niang first. When Yu Niang heard that her elder sister had hanged herself, and Jingji's singer was at home, she felt that the ice was 3 feet thick, and it was not a day's cold. She led her family, servants, maids, and wives, 7 or 8 people, to his house. When she saw her elder sister's body hanging straight, she cried and screamed, grabbed Jingji, and beat him up, and his body was covered with thorns. Fang Jinbao, the singer, hid under the bed and was pulled out and beaten to death. The doors, windows, and walls were smashed to pieces, and the bed curtains and dressing boxes in the room were moved away. She went home and asked her uncles Wu and Wu to come to discuss. The uncle said, "Sister, you should take advantage of the death of our family members and not go to the government. Tomorrow, he will have trouble and come to ask for boxes and cages. People who don't think about the future will have immediate worries. It's better to go to the government to break up, so as to prevent future troubles." Yu Nang said, "Brother, you think so?" She wrote a petition. The next day, Yu Nang went to the government office in person and submitted the petition to the county's official office. It turned out that the new county magistrate was named Huo Dali, from Huanggang County, Huguang. He was a Juran and a straightforward person. When he heard that it was a serious matter of life and death, he went to the hall to receive the complaint. The complaint read, "The plaintiff, Wu, is 34 years old and is the wife of the late Qian Hu Ximen King. The complaint is that the evil son-in-law bullied the widow, listened to the prostitute, tortured and beat the woman to death, and begged for mercy and punishment to save his life. Recently, there was a son-in-law, Chen Jingji, who was brought to my house by the government and lived there for several years. He usually drank and committed crimes, did not abide by his duties, and was beaten and hung. I was afraid of the law and drove him out. Unexpectedly, Jingji held a grudge and tortured my daughter Ximen at home, but I always endured it. Unexpectedly, he married lynching prostitute Feng Jinbao and took my daughter's wife to live with him. He listened to her instigation and abused her in every way, and also plucked her hair and kicked her all over. She could not bear it any longer and was about to die. At 3 o'clock in the morning on August 23rd of this year, she was hanged to death. I think Jingji is so cruel and stubborn that he bullies my lonely widow and threatens to kill her with a knife. It is unacceptable. I beg you to arrest her and investigate the cause of her death strictly and enforce the law, so that the evil and stubborn can be warned, the good can live in peace, and the deceased will not be wronged. For this reason, I have filed a petition to the county's justice master for execution." County Magistrate Huo read the petition in the official seat and saw that Wu Yunyang was wearing a white morning skirt and a morning skirt. She was the wife of a fifth-rank official. She was dignified and elegant. He stood up and said, "Wu, please get up. From my point of view, you are also a wife of an official. I know the reasoning behind this complaint. Please go back and let your family serve you from now on. I will play the cards to catch him." Wu Yunyang hurriedly thanked the magistrate, went out and took a sedan chair home, and asked Lai Zhao to serve him. Soon, the magistrate approved the complaint and appointed 2 officials with a white card to arrest Jingji, the prostitute Feng Jinbao, and the 2 neighboring Baojia, and went to the magistrate for trial. Jingji was at home making a mess of funeral affairs. When he heard Yunyang's complaint, the county sent officials to issue a card to arrest him. He was so scared that his soul flew away. Feng Jinbao was beaten so hard that he was in pain all over and fell asleep on the bed. Hearing that someone was taking him, he was so scared that he didn't know whether he was alive or not. Chen Jingji didn't have much money to spend, so he sent the officials to have a meal and wine, and tied the singers with a rope to the county. The neighbor on the left was Fan Gang, the neighbor on the right was Sun Chi, and the Baojia Wang Quan. When Magistrate Huo heard that someone had been arrested, he immediately went to the hall. Lai Zhao knelt at the top, while Chen Jingji, Feng Jinbao and his party knelt at the bottom. After the magistrate read the petition, he called Jingji up and said, "You are such a wretch. Why did you listen to the whore and beat Ximen to death, and then made her hang herself? What's the reason?" Jingji kowtowed and said, "I begged the Lord of Justice to investigate. How dare I beat him to death? Because I was working as a clerk. I was cheated and my capital was taken away. I was angry and came home to ask him for food. He didn't cook, so I kicked him twice. He hanged himself in the middle of the night." The magistrate shouted, "Since you married a whore, why did you ask him for food? It doesn't make sense. Wu's petition said that you beat her daughter to death and then hang herself. and you still don't confess. Jingji said, Wu and I have a grudge, so she framed me. I hope the Lord will investigate. The magistrate was furious and said, his daughter saw her death, and you still blamed her? He ordered his men to take him down and beat him with 20 boards. He brought Fang Jinbao up, twisted him once, and beat him 100 times. He ordered the public servants to take him down and put him in jail. The next day, the commissioner Zhang Buxi led the clerks, the militia, and the neighbors to Jingji's house, carried out the body, and examined it on the spot. There were bruises all over his body, and there were rope marks on his neck. Before his death, he was severely injured by Jingji's kicks and beatings, and he could not bear it, so he hanged himself. He took a confession and reported it to the county. The county magistrate was furious and beat Jingji 10 more times. Jinbao took off his clothes and was also beaten 10 times. Asked Chen Jingji to be hanged for beating his wife to death. Fang Jinbao handed over a sentence of 100 and sent him back to the court to work. Chen Jingji panicked and wrote a note in the prison, saying to Chen Ding that he would collect a total of 100 taels of silver from the capital of the cloth shop, including the hair and accessories of his eldest sister, and secretly send it to the county magistrate. The county magistrate changed the confession overnight, only asking that he was forced to death, and was a miscellaneous criminal, and was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and he would carry ashes to atone for his sins. Wu Yunyang knelt at the door again and again to plead. The magistrate called Yu Nying up and said, My dear, there are already rope marks on your daughter's neck. Why ask him about the law of beating and killing? Is it too biased? If you are afraid that he will bother you in the future, I will get a letter of excommunication for you, so that he will not come to your house again. At the same time, he brought Chen Jingji to him and said, I will spare your life today, but you must reform yourself and never bother Wu's family again. If you commit another crime, I will never forgive you. Even if you buy a coffin for Ximen and bury her, I will report back so that I can file a document with my superiors. Jingji was spared, paid the redemption money, returned home, carried the body into the coffin, kept it for 7 days, chanted sutras for the funeral, and buried it outside the city. He was in prison for half a month, spent a lot of money. And the singer Feng Jinbao also went there. Everything in the house was cleared, and the room was mortgaged. He just got his life back, and he never dared to call his mother-in-law again. It is true that people bring misfortune and fortune upon themselves, and we must know that extreme happiness will bring sorrow. There is a poem to prove it. The storm rises from the ground, and the righteousness and kindness should not be forgotten. The water overflows the blue bridge and there should be a meeting. The 3 stars will temporarily become Kangshang.
好了，这个故事先说到这里。
欲知后事如何，且听下回分解。